Yo, what's up guys? It's Noah here, and in today's video, going to be talking through the Week 1 NFL slate on Draftkings. We got Week 1 officially kicking off on Sunday, and in this video, we're going to give kind of a quick overview of the Week 1 slate. We're going to go game by game, and we're going to talk through each game, kind of give just my brief thoughts on each game, any plays I'm liking, any stacks I'm targeting. We'll do that for every game on the Week 1 main slate. And I'm going to try and do this somewhat quickly. I don't want this video to be too long. My goal is to keep these videos between like 20 to 25 minutes. So we'll just kind of give my brief thoughts on each game on the slate. But before we do, guys, hit that like button. If you do enjoy these videos, hit that subscribe button as well. Obviously, I will be uploading NFL DFS content all throughout the year, all the way up until the end of the season. We're also going to be talking a lot of Prize Picks this year. And for those of you that are new here, Prize Picks is the sponsor of this video. You can actually check out Prize Picks, link down below in the description, or just when you sign up for Prize Picks, make sure to use promo code NOAH. When you do sign up with my promo code, Prize Picks will match your first deposit up to $100. And I want to give a shout out to Prize Picks because they're running a great promo right now. We talked about this in our Thursday night video. Prize Picks is offering a free square right now where basically they have Tom Brady's passing yards set at 0.5. This promo is available all the way up until Sunday night when that game starts between the Bucs and the Cowboys. Obviously, you're going to take Tom Brady to have more than 0.5 passing yards, and then you just have to find any other pick that you like to pair with this. You can pair at least one pick, or you can pair up to 4 picks, so you can make up to a 5-pick entry, and you can win up to 10 extra money on Prize Picks. Now, Prize Picks, again, they're a player prop based DFS site, so it's very simple. You just look through all their projections, and if you have a lean one way or the other, you just take a player to have more or less than their projection. They have passing yards, rushing yards, receiving yards. They have pretty much all the props that all the major sports books offer, but they have other props as well that a lot of sports books don't offer. So they have fantasy point projections, which is something you can look at. We've all played fantasy football. We know how fantasy football scoring works. You can take a player to have more or less than their fantasy point projection if you have a good lean one way or the other on their fantasy point projection, or even if you make your own projections, you can make your decisions that way. But Prize Picks offers fantasy point projections. They offer even like field goals made, rush attempts, receptions. They have a ton of props available right now, and this is not even their full board. As we get closer to the start of the games on Sunday, I'm making this video on Friday. As we get closer to Sunday, you'll see Prize Picks add even more props to their board. So you guys are going to want to be playing on Prize Picks. They're running a great promo right now. It's kind of an incentive to get people to join. And we're going to be talking Prize Picks all NFL season. I will be making a video specifically for Prize Picks. Probably, if I don't make it today on Friday, I will definitely upload it tomorrow on Saturday. We'll talk through some of my favorite props for Sunday's main slate of games. So if you want to wait and pair the Tom Brady promo with whatever plays I'm running Sunday, you can do that. But definitely give Prize Picks a try, guys. If you have not yet, make sure to sign up for Prize Picks. Use promo code NOAH. Get your first deposit matched up to $100. And I do provide a lot of additional Prize Picks plays on Patreon. That's something worth mentioning. I do also give out additional DFS content on Patreon. So I do give out a full position-by-position breakdown, list off my favorite plays at each position for the Draftkings slate, for Yahoo as well, for those of you that are playing on Yahoo this year. I do also give out my Draftkings core plays, my Yahoo core plays, and again, my Prize Picks plays, any additional Prize Picks plays I like. Those are provided on Patreon. So if you guys want to check out the Patreon, it's linked down below in the description. Only $20 per month gets you access to all of my DFS content and all of my Prize Picks plays as well. But yeah, guys, let's talk through the Week 1 main slate. Again, we're going to go game by game, just going to do kind of a quick breakdown of each game. So we will start off with the first game on the slate, the Eagles and the Lions. Looking at the quarterbacks in this game, I think Jalen Hurts is someone that I will be targeting this week. Jalen Hurts, pretty much any slate he's on is going to be someone worth targeting just because he offers that rushing upside that a lot of quarterbacks don't offer. Hurts is one of those guys that can do it with his legs, and he just has a ceiling that not many QBs have the ceiling quite like Hurts. He's one of these guys that can run for 60, 70, 80 yards. Obviously, he can throw for 200, 250 yards. It's a good matchup against the Lions. I think the Lions will definitely be improved this year. I don't think they'll be as bad as they were last year, but still, this is a good spot for Jalen Hurts. They're big favorites in this game. I do worry a little bit about, if they do get up big in this game, will they kind of take their foot off the gas pedal? The Eagles, that's a concern, I guess, but Hurts has some weapons this year. He's got A.J. Brown now. He's still got that rushing upside. Definitely interested in Jalen Hurts. Not much interest in Jared Goff, though. For running backs in this game, DeAndre Swift, in this matchup against the Eagles, I am a little bit worried about his efficiency. I don't think he's going to be very efficient in this matchup. but I do expect him to get a lot of volume, and DeAndre Swift is a guy that is heavily used in the passing game, And in a game script like this, where the Eagles are big favorites right now, the Lions, let's see what they are. I think they're 4.5-point dogs. The Lions are at home. You would think they're probably going to be trailing in this game for a good amount. You would think there's going to be some drop downs available for DeAndre Swift. We've seen him have really good games whenever the Lions get behind, just because he is a guy that can catch 6, 7, 8 balls. I mean, he had that game against the Rams last year where he got 10 targets, had 8 receptions for 96 yards. The $6,800 price tag feels about right for DeAndre Swift. There are a lot of guys on this Week 1 slate that are underpriced. I think Swift is probably priced where he should be, but he's definitely someone I'm interested in. Miles Sanders, I mean, like every year, I want to say that like Miles Sanders is a guy that I get excited to roster, and he just never comes through for me. He always disappoints. It seems like it's a great matchup here against the Lions. I know the Lions last year were one of the worst run defenses. They really struggled against the run. But like, what is Sanders' workload going to look like? I don't think he's just going to have a bell cow workload. They're going to involve some of these backups. Kenneth Gainwell, Boston Scott probably get some touches. At 5,400, I mean, he's playable, but I'm not in love with Miles Sanders this week, even though the matchup is really good. I'm just a little bit worried about his workload. I just don't think he's going to get like 20 plus touches, which is kind of what you're looking for from your running backs. So that's probably it for the running backs in this game. Now looking at the receivers, in lineups where I do play Jalen Hurts, so Jalen Hurts is a guy that I don't think you have to stack with his receivers, because Jalen Hurts is one of those quarterbacks that can have a big game without any of his receivers going off, because Hurts can do it himself. But I think A.J. Brown looks really appealing here. Obviously, this is his first game with the Eagles. I think he's going to get good volume. I think he's going to be the number one target of Jalen Hurts this season. I like the matchup against Detroit. Detroit's secondary is not one that we fear at all. So definitely interested in A.J. Brown. If you want to go to Devontae Smith, I don't hate that either. Smith was kind of a little bit of a letdown last year. Didn't have as great of a year as a lot of people thought he would, but in year two, maybe with defenses so focused in on A.J. Brown this year, if that's their plan, that could open up more targets for Devontae Smith. So I think Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown are definitely in play. I will probably be using them more so in stacks than just kind of playing them as one-offs. On the Detroit side, looking at some of these Lions receivers, I mean, Amon-Ra St. Brown had an incredible year last year, and especially late in the season, he was just putting up monster game after monster game. I think when you're looking at the Lions, they're going to be a team that probably is forced to throw a good amount, just because they are going to be trailing in a lot of their games this year. This will probably be a game, again, where they do get behind and are kind of forced to throw. At 6,100, again, I don't think Amon-Ra St. Brown is someone that's criminally underpriced on the slate, because there's more receivers that we're going to talk about that are definitely too cheap. But we've seen the upside that Amon-Ra St. Brown has. We've seen the volume be there. I think the volume will probably be there once again this year. I mean, his competition for targets is they got DJ Shark, but DJ Shark just is not the guy they used to be. Josh Reynolds, I mean, these are not receivers that you expect to demand much volume. This Lions offense is probably going to be pretty bad, but I think Amon-Ra St. Brown will be a guy that gets a lot of volume once again, just because Jared Goff has to throw the ball to somebody, and I think St. Brown will kind of be the first guy that he looks to. But then when you're looking at the tight ends in this game, T.J. Hockenson and Dallas Goedert, neither one stand out to me on this slate. I think there are cheaper tight ends that I like more that we'll talk about later. But Hockenson, just kind of banking on the volume. He's a guy that will get 7, 8, 9 targets if the Lions are forced to throw. At 4,900, I think he's kind of priced where he should be, but he's playable. Dallas Goedert is playable, but I do worry a little bit about Goedert's targets maybe coming down a bit this year with A.J. Brown now in the fold. I think we could see Goedert's volume not be as high as it was last season. I think 5 to 6 targets a week is pretty likely for him. I don't know if we're going to see those 9, 10, 11 target games, but he's 4,500. He's a cheap tight end option. And that's really all that I think I'm looking to in this first game. So let's move on to the next game, Baltimore and New York, talking about the Ravens and the Jets. Honestly, quickly, just talking about the Jets, I think the Jets will probably be a full fade for me. I know last year in my tournament lineups, I rarely ever played many Jets players on this Week 1 slate. I mean, maybe Elijah Moore has a good game, maybe Corey Davis has a good game, but with Joe Flacco at quarterback, I just don't think I'm going to be playing many Jets on this slate. Now on the Ravens side, definitely am interested in Lamar Jackson. I think Lamar Jackson will probably be one of the more popular quarterback options this week. Normally, quarterback, when you're looking at ownership for quarterbacks, it's usually spread out for the most part. But I think Lamar Jackson is projected out as one of the higher owned quarterbacks right now. He's coming in with the second highest ownership projection behind Jalen Hurts. So Yeah, I have no issue with Lamar Jackson. It's a matchup that he should have a lot of success in. I mean, the Jets' defense is not one that you're really worried about. I know the Jets were one of the worst defensive teams last year. I don't think really much is going to change this season. We know Lamar Jackson, very similar to Jalen Hurts, has that elite rushing upside that a lot of quarterbacks don't offer. He's one of these guys that can do it himself. He doesn't have to, you don't have to stack Lamar Jackson with his receivers. You obviously can, but Lamar Jackson can have 30-plus fantasy point games without any of his receivers really going off. So, yeah, Lamar Jackson's a very strong option. Cash games, I think he's viable. In tournaments, he'll definitely make my player pool. Running backs in this game, I mean, the Jets side, not much interest in any Jets running backs. With Breece Hall, with Michael Carter, even Tevin Coleman, I don't really know how they're going to split the touches between all those guys. Breece Hall, obviously their rookie. I mean, he was good last year when he was with Iowa State. I don't watch a ton of college football, but I remember watching some games when he was at Iowa State, and he was a good runner. With this Jets offensive line, I don't think Breece Hall is going to have that great of a season. And at 5,500, I don't think he's a guy that I really want to roster at that price tag. But I guess if you forced me to roster a Jets running back, it probably would be Breece Hall. But again, the Jets are a team I'm probably just going to be staying away from. On the Baltimore side, looking at their running backs, I mean, I think the workloads are probably going to be split somewhat between J.K. Dobbins, Kenyon Drake, and maybe Mike Davis gets some touches too. J.K. Dobbins is coming in a little bit banged up. He was limited in Thursday's practice. This will be something to monitor. I'm assuming J.K. Dobbins does play here. If he does at 5,600, I mean, the matchup is pretty solid. Last year against the running back position, the Jets did allow the most fantasy points to opposing running backs last year. So I think it's a good matchup for J.K. Dobbins. The price tag at 5,600 feels about right. He is coming back from an injury. He didn't play at all last year, so it's obviously a concern when a guy's coming back from a major injury. You just don't know how efficient he's going to be. You don't know if he's going to get a full workload. But if he does play, I mean, he's a viable tournament option. He's just kind of like a low-owned play. If J.K. Dobbins sits, then I guess we would see Kenyon Drake move into that starting role, and Kenyon Drake's 5K. I mean, Kenyon Drake, last year when he was with the Raiders, he didn't show a ton of, explosiveness. He didn't really have many good games, but he also didn't really get a full workload. He was just kind of the backup to Josh Jacobs. If Dobbins were to sit, I would assume that the Kenyon Drake would be the starter and would get a good amount of touches. And he's only 5K, so I would actually have some interest in Kenyon Drake this week if J.K. Dobbins doesn't play. I'm guessing Dobbins will play, and you'll probably see kind of a split between Dobbins and Drake. I don't love this Baltimore backfield, but it will be one worth keeping an eye on with Dobbins, I guess currently questionable right now. But let's move on to receivers. So looking at receivers here, I think Rashad Bateman is a guy that we might expect to kind of break out this year. He was kind of a guy that a lot of people were high on last season. He didn't have the greatest year that a lot of people thought he would have. But now without Hollywood Brown, I mean, Rashad Bateman's going to be their wide receiver one. Him and Mark Andrews are going to be the two guys that really demand the most volume in this offense. They should be the guys that get the most targets from Lamar Jackson. And he's only 5,300, so I think is a cheaper wide receiver option. Rashad Bateman is someone that I do like quite a bit. There is a receiver that is priced close to him that is going to be very popular this week that we'll talk about later. But I think Bateman could make for a good pivot or a guy just you look to in tournaments. If you are playing Lamar Jackson, you could obviously stack him up with Bateman. I have no issue doing that. But I'm not really looking to many other receivers. I mean, the Jets receivers, Elijah Moore, Corey Davis. I mean, Garrett Wilson. Anytime you have a rookie, like a rookie that showed a lot of upside in college, it's always exciting to see how they do in the NFL. But week one is usually a week where I just kind of shy away from the rookies. Sometimes it does seem like the rookies take a little bit longer to kind of finally break out. It's not often that we see rookies have like massive week one games. So Garrett Wilson might have some good games later on in the season, but for this week one slate, I don't think I'm going to be going there. The other Baltimore receivers, I'm not really going to. It's too big of a slate to be rostering guys like Devin Duvernay or Demarcus Robinson. So let's talk about tight ends real quick in this game. Really, the only tight end I'm interested in is Mark Andrews. I think Mark Andrews is probably one of the best tight end plays on the slate when you're just looking at raw projected points. Andrews should get great volume this year without Hollywood Brown. He's probably going to be the number one target of Lamar Jackson. We know Andrews is a guy that they like to use a lot in the red zone. He's a guy that is always a threat to just score multiple touchdowns. He showed that upside last season. I know he kind of got off to a slow start last year, but he really picked it up late in the season. Had multiple 100-yard plus games. He scored 9 touchdowns last year. Again, he's a guy that they're going to use in the red zone. And last season against the tight end position, the Jets, they did allow the fifth most fantasy points to opposing tight ends last year. So I think the spot's pretty good for Mark Andrews. If I'm stacking anyone with Lamar Jackson, first bet's probably going to be Andrews. Second guy will be Bateman. Don't think I'd be stacking anyone else with Jackson personally. So that's really it for the Jets and Ravens. Let's move on to the next game, the Saints and the Falcons. So looking at the quarterbacks in this game, slight interest in both quarterbacks here, just kind of when you're looking for some value at the position. Jameis Winston, I mean, he's a guy that I really like. I'm a big Florida State fan, so obviously Winston has kind of he's just got a special place in my heart. Winston brought us our first national championship in a long time. I think Jameis Winston, he has always shown good fantasy upside. I know the interceptions have always been an issue for Jameis Winston, but interceptions, when you're looking at fantasy scoring, it's not like they hurt that bad. I mean, you only lose 1 point for an interception. And Winston's one of these guys that he'll chuck the ball downfield. Now, in the Saints offense, are they going to let him chuck the ball downfield? I mean, I guess that's to be determined, but he's got some weapons. He's got Michael Thomas if he comes into this game healthy. They got Chris Olave. Obviously, they have Alvin Kamara out of the backfield. This game right now only has like a 42 total. I was surprised to see this game have such a low total. I would say like 3-4 years ago, this game would have had like a 50-plus total. But I guess when you have Jameis Winston and Marcus Mariota competing against each other, the total's not going to be that high. But I do have some interest in Jameis Winston as a value quarterback. I think when you're looking for stacking options, it's kind of appealing. I mean, you got Michael Thomas. You could go to Jarvis Landry. You have Chris Olave. Again, we talked about rookies. In their first week of the season, it's always a bit of a scare to roster a rookie in their first game, their first NFL game. But you could definitely go to Chris Olave. I think Winston will make my player pool. I think in my MME builds, I do play 150 lineups during the NFL, and I think Winston will probably make my player pool. I don't know how much exposure I'll get to him, but if I get a couple percentage of Jameis Winston, like that's something that I'm not going to hate. I'm totally fine with that. And then Marcus Mariota, I do want to mention as a cheap quarterback just because he does offer rushing upside, which is hard to find. It's usually hard to find quarterbacks cheap that have rushing upside, and Mariota does offer that. Now, his weapons are a bit of a concern. Like, he's got Kyle Pitts, he's got Drake London. There's not much else for Mariota behind those two guys. So I don't think we're going to see Mariota have like a crazy good year, but I know a lot of people are thinking, Mariota could maybe win like comeback player of the year. I mean, I've always thought Mariota was talented. He just never really got like a fair chance, I guess. Now he's with a new team. He's got, different weapons. We'll see how he does with Pitts and with Drake London. But yeah, 5,200 with the rushing upside that Mariota has, I think he's playable as a value option. I think him and Winston will both should be fairly low owned. Right now, I don't think really either one are projected for much ownership at all. Winston's projected for 5% ownership. Mariota's projected for 2%. So yeah, if you want some low owned value quarterbacks with upside, I think Winston and Mariota are definitely in play. Now the running backs in this game, Alvin Kamara, yeah, no interest going to no issue going to Alvin Kamara. I mean, Kamara's a great play pretty much every single week. He's got elite pass catching upside, and that's so valuable on DraftKings with the scoring, full PPR scoring. How much is he going to be involved with Jameis Winston? Is Winston going to drop it down to the running backs a lot? I think he should definitely have a better year with Winston than he did with Taysom Hill. Obviously, Taysom Hill was a guy that took a lot of touchdowns away from Kamara. A lot of times when they would get near the goal line, Taysom Hill would run it in and not Kamara. So I think Kamara is kind of poised for a much better year this year. I think his touchdowns will be higher this year. I think he'll definitely find the end zone a lot more. At 7,600, I think he's a very strong pay-up option at running back, and obviously Kamara offers that ceiling that you really look for with DraftKings scoring, with it being full PPR. I don't think I'm really going to any of the Atlanta running backs, though. I mean, Cordero Patterson, he's got upside as a pass catcher. How much are they going to use him in the running game this year? I mean, they don't have Mike Davis anymore, so I'm guessing their other running back is Damian Williams. I mean, Patterson's probably going to get 8 to 10 carries, and he's going to get work in the passing game too. At 5,800, I mean, he is a playable option, but this matchup against the Saints is a little bit worrisome. I mean, the Saints were one of the best teams against the run last year. They've always been really stout against the run. So Atlanta running backs are not. I'm not a ton of interest in the Atlanta running backs, but I definitely think Alvin Kamara is a good running back play in this game. Now, looking at their wide receivers, we'll have to keep an eye on the status of Michael Thomas. This will be Michael Thomas's first game back in first regular season game in quite some time, coming back from an injury. Obviously, this is the injury is somewhat of a concern, but we know Michael Thomas has the talent and we know he has the upside. So if he does wind up playing here and he's not limited, if he's full go, he's someone that I do have some interest in, and obviously you could look to stack him up with Jameis Winston. If Michael Thomas doesn't play, then you could definitely see more targets going to Jarvis Landry, to Chris Olave. Those guys would get boost if Thomas were to be out. Drake London, I think, should play. He was a limited participant in Thursday's practice, but he should be good to go. I mean, he's basically the wide receiver one for Atlanta this year. I mean, Kyle Pitts will probably demand the most volume, but I think when you're looking for value at receiver, 5K for Drake London. It's a rookie, first game of the year. We'll see how he plays, but I think just talking about volume, his competition for targets, there's not much besides him and Pitts. I mean, Bryan Edwards, Zacchaeus, like these are guys you don't really expect to get a ton of volume. So yeah, I think Drake London at 5K is a playable option. It's probably it though for receivers in this game. Now for tight ends, yeah, Kyle Pitts at 5,700. He's probably one of the better tight end plays on the slate, just kind of points per dollar wise. The $5,700 price tag, I think, still leaves enough room for him to be worth the salary and to pay off the salary. Pitts should have a big year, I think. Pitts was a guy that last season was kind of a disappointment. He showed some big games, but he also had some very disappointing games. With Marcus Mariota at quarterback, we'll see, if that helps or hurts Pitts. I think it's going to help Pitts. I think Mariota will have a good year. I think Mariota is still a good quarterback. And Pitts last year, he only scored one touchdown. I would definitely bank on him, some positive touchdown regression coming for Kyle Pitts. He's going to find the end zone more than one time this season. I mean, he had over 1,000 receiving yards last year and just one touchdown. So there should be some positive touchdown regression coming for him. He should be a guy that has a big year, is going to get good volume. He should be the number one target of Marcus Mariota. So at 5,700, I think Kyle Pitts is a really good tight end play. I think if you're playing Mariota in tournaments, if you want a low on quarterback and you want to stack him up with someone, I think Pitts would be the first guy that I would look to. But let's move on to the next game. Going to try and go quickly through these games. So Dolphins and Patriots here. Not one I'm going to spend much time on. I mean, the quarterbacks in this game, I'm not really looking to. Tua and Mac Jones are not QBs I'm interested in that much. I think if I'm going to play a cheap quarterback, I'd rather go to the two quarterbacks we just talked about, Winston and Mariota. I think I would play those guys over these two. So not much interest in the quarterbacks in the running game. I mean, I just think there's better running back plays. Chase Edmonds, if he gets a full workload, he's a guy that offers a lot of upside, but he could be splitting carries with Raheem Mostert, maybe with Myles Gaskin too. These backfields are ones I don't think I want to be touching in week one. The Patriots, they're going to run a committee at running back. They pretty much always do. So Damian Harris will probably be the lead back, but they're going to involve Ramondre Stevenson. And then on the Miami side, Chase Edmonds will probably be the lead back, but Raheem Mostert's going to get some touches. Myles Gaskin will probably get some touches as well. These guys are cheap, but I just don't think I want to go there. I think this could be a really low scoring game. Right now the total is a little bit higher than I thought it would be. I think this game has a 46 total. I could definitely see this game going under the 46 total. I think this could be a really low scoring, sloppy game. I don't see much I'm liking here. I don't really think I'm going to be targeting the running backs in this game. The wide receivers, Tyreek Hill, his first game with the Dolphins. What are we going to get from Tyreek Hill? Is he going to be the same fantasy monster that he was when he was with the Chiefs? I don't think so. I think his fantasy value definitely took a hit getting traded to Miami. Just having Tua at quarterback is nowhere near the same as having Patrick Mahomes. But at 6,800, we know Tyreek Hill offers that big play upside. He's always a threat to break off a long touchdown. He's one of the highest upside receivers in the league. He's going to be in play for me. He's going to make my tournament player pool, but I don't think I'm going to be stacking him up much with Tua. I think if anything, I'm just going to be playing Tyreek as a one-off probably, or maybe doing some mini stacks in this game, but I don't think I'm stacking Tyreek with Tua. I think Tyreek I'll just be fine playing kind of by himself as a one-off. Jalen Waddle, I think, will take a bit of a hit this year with Tyreek in the fold now. I think Waddle's target share is going to take a little bit of a hit. I think Waddle will be very low owned. I think if people are going to play a Dolphins receiver, they're just going to play Tyreek and not Waddle. So if you want a really low-owned receiver that has upside, yeah, Jalen Waddle's in play, but Tyreek, I think, is the guy that I'd rather go to. And then I don't really see much else I'm liking. I don't think I'm going to target any New England receivers. The tight ends in this game, Mike Gesicki, I guess, is playable, but there's other cheap tight ends I prefer. I'd rather get up to someone like Pitts if I could get to Pitts. The New England tight ends, they're just touchdown or bust. Hunter Henry, if he finds the end zone, could be worth his salary, but he's going to have to get into the end zone to justify being worth rostering. So, yeah, not a ton I'm loving in the Dolphins-Patriots game. I think Tyreek is the guy that I'm looking to most here, just kind of as a one-off. But let's move on to the next game, the Steelers and the Bengals. So looking at this one for quarterbacks, yeah, Joe Burrow in the mid-range, I think it's a very solid play. I think his price tag at $6,400 still leaves plenty of room for him to pay off the salary. You could argue that he should be a couple $100 more expensive than he actually is. Matchup against the Steelers is not the best, I would say. Steelers have always had a pretty stout defense, but we know Burrow has good weapons. He's got good upside. And he's a guy that is always pretty much going to make my player pool. Now, Mitch Trubisky, kind of similar to Winston and Mariota, he's a valued quarterback that I actually want to get a little bit of exposure to because Mitchell Trubisky also has rushing upside. He didn't really show much upside when he was with the Bears. He didn't have the best season when he was with the Bears, when he was their quarterback. But now with the new offense, playing with the Steelers, we might see Trubisky have a good year this year. We'll see what kind of opportunity he gets. He's only $5K though. He offers rushing upside. He's got stackable options. If you want to stack him with George Pickens or maybe Deontay Johnson if he plays this week, you could do that. I think at $5K, as a cheap value quarterback that's going to be very low owned, I do have a little bit of interest in Mitchell Trubisky. Running backs in this game, I think both running backs are really solid options. Joe Mixon and Najee Harris are both workhorse running backs. You don't really worry about anyone else stealing touches away from them. You don't worry about Samaje Perine taking touches away from Mixon. You don't worry about Benny Snell taking touches away from Najee Harris. If they get down to the goal line, you expect Mixon and Harris to be the guys punching it in. In pass down situations, you expect Mixon to be catching passes. You expect Najee Harris to be catching passes as well. So, yeah, both those guys are in play for me. Both are solid running back options this week. I definitely like that price tag of $6,400 on Najee Harris. I think that is a little bit too cheap for him. Now, looking at wide receivers, the Cincinnati wide receivers, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd, they're all viable. I would definitely say Chase and Higgins are the two that I would look to first, and I like the most. In tournaments, you can obviously stack them up with Joe Burrow. You could stack Chase and Burrow together. You could do a double stack. You could stack Chase and Higgins with Joe Burrow. I think pretty much every week, Chase and Higgins are going to make my player pool. The matchup against Pittsburgh is probably not the best, but these guys are just so talented. They have so much upside, and they have a really good quarterback they play with. So I definitely am interested in these Cincinnati receivers, more so for tournaments. And then on the Pittsburgh side, I think Deontay Johnson at $6K, if he does play, will definitely be someone worth targeting. He was a volume monster whenever he was on the field. Obviously, a different quarterback now. Maybe Mitchell Trubisky spreads out the targets a little bit more than Big Ben did. Big Ben loved to lock in on Deontay Johnson, but I think Deontay Johnson, it looks like he was able to get a full practice on Friday, so he should be good to go this week. I think at $6K, when you're just looking for volume, he obviously offers that. And then value receiver, I do like George Pickens quite a bit. George Pickens, I think, is going to be a good fantasy receiver this year. It seems like he's actually kind of taken over the wide receiver 2 role, and it looks like he's going to be playing ahead of Chase Claypool. It seems like that's at least what a lot of the beat writers are kind of reporting at. So if George Pickens is going to be the wide receiver 2 for the Steelers, at only $4,100, he is someone that I do like quite a bit for value. He showed a lot of upside when he was healthy in college. He did have that injury that kind of hurt him a little bit. He arguably would have been a top receiver drafted had he not gotten hurt. But at $4,100, he was good in the preseason. I know I didn't watch much preseason, but I heard he played really well in the preseason. He's a cheap option that I do like quite a bit. I think this will be somewhat of a pass-heavy game script for Pittsburgh. I could definitely see them getting behind in this game. They could be forced to throw. And Pickens, at his salary with the upside that he has, I know it's a rookie first game, but I think at that price tag, I'm definitely interested in George Pickens this week. And then tight ends in this game, not much interest. Pat Freiermuth is kind of just like a touchdown or bust. His competition for targets is a little bit higher this year with Deontay healthy. It looks like he's healthy. With George Pickens now in the fold, they still do have Claypool. Freiermuth just kind of like a touchdown or bust option. Don't think I'm going to go to the Cincinnati tight ends. I just don't think they're going to use their tight ends enough this year. The tight ends are just their touchdown or bust pretty much. So let's move on to the next game. We got Indiana and Houston. This is one we probably won't spend much time on. Quarterbacks in this game, not a ton of interest on either side. Matt Ryan in a dome and in a good matchup against Houston, I think Matt Ryan offers some upside, but when you're looking to stack him, the guy that you would want to stack him with is Michael Pittman, and Michael Pittman is going to be very popular this week. He's one of the kind of top projected plays. Since Michael Pittman is going to be so popular, if you want to play Michael Pittman in tournaments and then get a little bit different, you could stack him up with Matt Ryan. I don't think a ton of people are going to play Matt Ryan in tournaments. I don't think a ton of people are going to stack Matt Ryan with Pittman. So I guess that's something you could do, but the quarterbacks in general are not ones I'm looking too much in this game, Matt Ryan or Davis Mills. Running backs, Jonathan Taylor, he should crush here. Jonathan Taylor is probably one of the top running back plays on the slate. He's going to be one of the top running back plays pretty much every slate he's on. He crushed Houston last year, 28 Draftkings points, one game. I think he played them twice last year. 31 DK points. So 21 and 38 DK points in his two games against Houston last season. Houston was one of the worst teams against the run last year. Don't think anything's going to change this season. They're probably going to be one of the worst teams in the league once again. Big favorites here, even on the road. Should be a run-heavy game script late in the game for Indiana or for the Colts. I think Jonathan Taylor at 9,100 is a very strong play here. Not really looking to many other running backs, though. I mean, Dameon Pierce, I guess, is worth mentioning because it looks like he is going to be the RB1 for the Texans. What is his workload actually going to look like? Like, is he going to get 15 to 20 touches? I guess that's to be determined, but he does seem like he is kind of past Rex Burkhead, and obviously they released Marlon back, so Dameon Pierce at 4,800 is kind of projecting out as a decent value at the running back position. Let me see what his ownership is right now. Right now, let's see. Pierce is coming in with, let's see, hold up. I got to uncheck quarterback. I think he's coming in with some decent ownership at running back, if I do remember correctly. He's coming in with 12% ownership, but again, that price tag at 4,800, if he does get a full starter's workload, if he is going to be the #1 running back for the Texans, he's going to stand out as a solid value. So I do have some interest in Dameon Pierce, but obviously the top running back play in this game is Jonathan Taylor. Now on the wide receiver side, Brandon Cooks, he was a guy that I did play a lot last year just because he got so much volume. The Texans were pretty much trailing like every single game. They had to throw a ton. Cooks would get like double-digit targets almost every single week. That's probably going to be the case once again this year. I think the $6,300 salary is about right for Brandon Cooks, but the volume's going to be there. The Texans are going to have to throw a lot. So, yeah, he's in play for me. And then Michael Pittman is probably going to be one of the most popular plays on the slate. Right now, Pittman's projected ownership, I believe, is the highest on the slate. Yeah, 27.5% projected ownership for Michael Pittman. 5,500 is just too cheap for the targets that he should get in this Colts offense. I think Matt Ryan is going to get him the ball. We know Matt Ryan is a guy that likes to lock in on his #1 receiver. So 5,500 in a good matchup against a bad Texans defense. I think Michael Pittman in cash games, you're definitely playing Michael Pittman in tournaments. He's going to be popular, but I'm still going to have him in my player pool. I just think he's a really good play this week and is definitely underpriced for the target volume that he should get. There's just not much competition for targets behind him. I mean, you don't really worry about anyone else stealing him targets away from Pittman. So yeah, I think Pittman is a great play. He'll definitely be someone that I'll probably have in my core plays that I post on Patreon. But let's move on to tight end. Not really interested in either tight ends. The tight ends in this game, Houston tight ends, just no thanks. Mo Alley Cox, I mean, he's kind of like a touchdown or bust option. I think there's better value tight ends on the slate that I'd rather go to. So yeah, let's go ahead and move on to the next game. I do want to start to go through these games quick. I know we've been recording for a while. Let's see how long we've been recording for. We've been recording for 32 minutes. So yeah, I gotta start picking up the pace. So Jacksonville and Washington. Not a ton of interesting quarterbacks in this game. I mean, Trevor Lawrence probably going to have a good year. He should be better than he was last year, but on this slate, when you're looking at options to stack with Trevor Lawrence, I don't think there's much I'm interested in. Same with Carson Wentz. I mean, Terry McLaurin I'll have some exposure to, but more so as just like a tournament play as a one-off, not necessarily stacking him with Wentz. Running backs in this game, I mean, Antonio Gibson should be poised for a pretty big workload. With the unfortunate news with Brian Robinson, it kind of sets up Gibson to be the #1 running back for the Commanders this year. Obviously, they do have J.D. McKissick there as kind of their pass-catching running back, but especially if the Commanders get a lead in this game, which it looks like they are favorites here, we should see a lot of Gibson handoffs. He should probably get 15 to 20 carries. Should get some work in the passing game as well. At 5,800, I think Antonio Gibson's a really good play here, and the matchup's really good. Jacksonville's defense is never, their run defense has never been that good. And then on the Jacksonville side, I mean, you have Travis Etienne, you have James Robinson. How are the carries going to be split between these two guys? Obviously, Robinson coming off that Achilles injury. We don't exactly know what kind of workload he's going to have. I assume he'll mix in with some touches, but I do expect Etienne to be the #1 running back for Jacksonville. But I think again, his workload is going to be split with him and Robinson. So this is probably a situation I'll just be avoiding. Don't really see much interest in either one. I would just if I'm going to play a running back in this game, it's going to be Gibson. Wide receivers in this game, Terry McLaurin, always in play for me. Always a guy that offers upside. Don't think I'm going to be stacking him up with Carson Wentz, but I think playing him as a one-off makes sense. If you want to go that route, or even if you want to run like a secondary stack, like a mini stack of McLaurin and Kirk, just kind of like a two-man stack. I don't hate that. I think Christian Kirk should have good volume in this Jacksonville offense. He's going to be their #1 receiver. They paid him a shit ton of money. He's only 5,100. He did show some upside when he was with the Cardinals with Kyler Murray. Obviously, a little bit of a quarterback downgrade going to Trevor Lawrence, but I think Trevor Lawrence is going to have a better year this year than he did last year. I think Kirk should get some decent volume, so he's viable at 5,100. Not really looking to many other receivers in this game. The tight ends, I'm not that interested in. Logan Thomas, it looks like, is questionable for week 1. Even if he doesn't play, I don't think that really opens up much value from Washington. Evan Ingram, I guess, could be a guy worth targeting. I mean, Evan Ingram has always been a guy that I thought had talent. He just never really got the ball when he was with the Giants. His targets were never that consistent. Maybe his target volume will be higher this year with Jacksonville as they're kind of their number one tight end. He's only 3,500. I don't hate that as a value play at tight end, but when you're looking at plays in this game, I'm definitely focused on Antonio Gibson, and I think Terry McLaurin makes some sense as well. But I do like Antonio Gibson quite a bit from this game. Now, next game, the 49ers and the Bears. Quarterbacks here, Trey Lance and Justin Fields. They both offer rushing upside, so I think both are viable. I do have a little bit more interest in Trey Lance, just because we saw Trey Lance when he did get starts last year. He did show some upside, did have some decent games. Matchup on the road against the Bears is probably not the best spot for him to be making his Week 1 start, but I think at 6K with the rushing upside he has, Trey Lance is someone that I'll definitely have some interest in. Running backs in this game, David Montgomery and Eli Mitchell, I should say. They're both viable for me. Neither one stand out as like top options. When you're looking at running backs in that price range, like a guy like Antonio Gibson, I would probably rather go to. But I don't think either one of these running backs are projected out for a ton of ownership. Like right now, let's see where these guys are at. Like Elijah Mitchell's only coming in with 4% ownership. David Montgomery 4%. So these are guys that will probably get decent workloads. They'll be the number one running back for their teams. I do kind of question the upside a little bit, I guess. I don't love the spots in general, but at their price points, I think Mitchell and Montgomery are both playable. They should be low owned. They're fine options in tournaments. Deebo Samuel, I'm a little bit worried about this year with Trey Lance. We didn't see him have as good a games with Trey Lance as he did with Jimmy Garoppolo. He also had a lot of rushing attempts last year. I don't know if those rushing attempts are going to be there this year, just because the 49ers were so banged up at running back last season that they had to basically use Deebo as like their backup running back. Is he going to get those 8 to 10 carries every single week? I don't think so. I don't think they're going to use him as much in the running game this year. And the targets probably will still be solid, but 7,400, I think Deebo is just like a low-owned dart throw. I think he'll be a contrarian play this week. Maybe if you're stacking him up with Trey Lance, you could go that route. Trey Lance will definitely be in my player pool, but I don't know how much I'll be stacking him with Samuel. Darnell Mooney, I think, is kind of poised for a big year. He's going to be the number one for the Bears. Obviously, they don't have Allen Robinson anymore. We saw Darnell Mooney have some big games last year, especially towards the end of the season when he was playing with Andy Dalton. I think he'll have some big games this year with Justin Fields, and he's only 5,700. He has that big play upside. I definitely have some interest in Darnell Mooney in that mid-range, more of a tournament play, but he's someone that I do like quite a bit. Brandon Ayuk, I think, could be solid in the mid-range at 5,200. He's another guy that's kind of poised for a better year this year as the wide receiver 2 for the 49ers. If we're expecting Deebo to have a little bit of a down year, that could be more opportunity coming for Brandon Ayuk. So I think Ayuk's in play. Not really looking at anyone else, though. And then tight ends in this game, George Kittle, assuming he does play, I think is obviously a viable option. I would probably rather go to Kyle Pitts if I had to choose like a tight end to pay up for. Probably rather go to Kyle Pitts. Probably rather go to Mark Andrews if I could get up to Mark Andrews. But Kittle's fine. He didn't participate in Thursday's practice, so he might actually not even play this week. If he doesn't play, that could open up some value from the 49ers. Like maybe you could go to like a Tyler Kroft if he's even on the roster. Looks like they did re-sign him, but I'll probably be staying away from the 49ers tight ends if Kittle doesn't play. If Kittle does play, then yeah, you could go to Kittle. But I do like Cole Kmet as a value tight end. I think Cole Kmet is a guy that will offer some upside, and he's very cheap, 3,700. He's definitely one of my favorite value tight ends when you're just looking for a raw paydown option, just like raw points per dollar wise. He's only 3,700. He probably gets like anywhere from 4 to 5 targets. He's probably going to have to get into the end zone to really be worth rostering, but I think the volume will be there. He'll probably be the number 2 option for the Bears behind Darnell Mooney. The competition for targets for Mooney is not that high. I mean, they got like Byron Pringle. I think Cole Kmet's probably going to have a good year this year, and he's going to be a guy that gets consistent volume, and he's only 3,700. So, yeah, I think Cole Kmet for value is someone I'm targeting for tight end. But let's move on to the next game, Carolina and Cleveland. Quarterbacks in this game, no thanks on Baker Mayfield, no thanks on Jacoby Brissett. Don't really have an interest in either one. Running backs, I think both running backs look good here, specifically Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey also projecting out as one of the top owned plays this week. He's going to be one of the highest owned plays on the slate. I don't have an issue with that. I think McCaffrey offers one of the highest ceilings and floors of any running back. Pretty much, any slate he's on, McCaffrey is going to be a top option. We know he offers that elite pass catching upside on Draftkings with it being full PPR scoring. Getting running backs that can catch 8, 9, 10 balls is so valuable. I definitely like McCaffrey this week. Nick Chubb, he's going to be splitting some touches with Kareem Hunt, but I don't have an issue with Nick Chubb. We know Nick Chubb has big-time upside. Don't love the matchup against the Panthers. I know the Panthers were pretty stout against the run last year. At least I want to say they were last season. Let's see where they average in terms of rushing yards. They were toward the bottom, I do believe, or they're actually middle of the pack in terms of rushing yards allowed to running backs. But we know Nick Chubb's a very talented running back. We know he offers that long, ability to break off a long touchdown. Anytime the Browns get near the goal line, you would probably think Chubb's going to be the guy punching it in. He's only 6,500. He should be more of a contrarian option this week. I don't have an issue with Nick Chubb. He'll definitely be in my tournament player pool. Not really looking at any other running backs, though. Moving on to wide receivers. I mean, DJ Moore, I think he's obviously a very talented receiver with a lot of upside. I don't think I'm going to be playing Baker Mayfield much this week, so if I'm playing DJ Moore, it might just kind of be as a one-off or maybe as a mini stack with DJ Moore and then run it back with Nick Chubb or something like that. At 6K, I mean, DJ Moore probably will have a good year this year with Baker. I don't think Baker's too big of an upgrade from Sam Darnold, but I would say he is an upgrade at least. DJ Moore's fine in the mid-range. Amari Cooper, I'm definitely worried about the quarterback play. With Jacoby Brissett, I just don't have a ton of confidence in Amari Cooper. I think Amari Cooper is talented, but yeah, that quarterback play definitely worries me. I think you could see the Browns go really run heavy here. So it's probably it for receivers in this game. Tight ends, David Njoku, you could definitely throw into that value tight end pool with guys like Cole Kmet. I think Njoku at 3,900 should be a pretty heavy target option here for Jacoby Brissett. I think he'll be a big body that they look to target in the red zone as well. I mean, his competition for targets is not that high behind. Really, it's just Amari Cooper you're worried about. Then they have Donovan Peoples-Jones. I mean, this Browns wide receiver core is pretty bad. So, yeah, I think Njoku is going to be a guy that gets a good targets this year. Not really targeting the Carolina tight ends, but Njoku for 3,900, I do have some interest in for value. Let's move on to the afternoon games. We're going to go through these quick, man. We've been talking for way too long. This video is already 41 minutes. I went way too long, but I'm going to try and speed this up next week, guys. But for Green Bay and Minnesota, looking at quarterbacks here, you got Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins. Both are fine options. Neither one stand out as priority plays for me. I'm definitely going to have some exposure to a guy like Justin Jefferson, so maybe Kirk Cousins makes my tournament player pool, but I'll more so be using Justin Jefferson as kind of a one-off, and I don't know if I'll be stacking him up a ton with Kirk Cousins. Running backs in this game, I think Dalvin Cook and Aaron Jones are both solid. Obviously, Dalvin Cook is one of the top fantasy running backs. He gets great volume both through the air, and on the ground. Gets good pass catching work, and at 7,900 at home in Minnesota in the Dome. I think Cook's a very solid play. I would still rather get up to a guy like Christian McCaffrey. Rather play Jonathan Taylor too, but no issue going to Dalvin Cook. Aaron Jones is probably going to be splitting some time with A.J. Dillon this year, but Aaron Jones has always shown big play upside. He also gets really good work in the passing game too. With the Packers wide receiver core, how bad it is, we could see Jones used even more in the passing game this year. I have no issue going to Aaron Jones. I think in the mid-range, he's a solid option. Not a top play for me, but he's playable. Wide receivers in this game, the Minnesota wide receivers are where I want to start off with. I think Jefferson and Thielen are both viable. Jefferson, obviously one of the top fantasy receivers, gets great volume, has a ton of upside. Again, I don't know if I'm going to have a ton of exposure to Kirk Cousins, so I don't know if I'm going to be stacking up Cousins a ton with his receivers, but I think playing Jefferson as a one-off or playing him in mini stacks with Aaron Jones is something that I will be looking to do in this game. Justin Jefferson just has so much upside that he is someone that is pretty much always going to make my player pool. And then Thielen at 5,400. 5,400 does feel a little bit too cheap for Adam Thielen. I think he's a play that I'm looking to in that mid-range. He's definitely viable. Should come in with lower ownership than a guy like Michael Pittman, who's going to be a very popular play at a similar price point. Don't really have much interest though in the Green Bay receivers. I mean, if you want to go to an Allen Lazard or a Sammy Watkins or Randall Cobb, I guess you could do that. But man, I'm sure Aaron Rodgers will find a way to get his guys the ball, but I just don't think I'm going to be targeting these Green Bay receivers. Robert Tonyan, you could maybe look to as a tight end option. Maybe Robert Tonyan sees more opportunity this year without Devonta Adams, but he didn't really show much upside last year. He was a guy that kind of had to get into the end zone to justify his salary. He feels like a touchdown or bust play. I'd rather roster a guy like Njoku, even go to a guy like Cole Kmet, who we talked about. And then the Minnesota tight ends, Irv Smith, I think, is someone that's kind of worth mentioning, just because Irv Smith did show upside when he was healthy. Obviously, he didn't play really at all last year, but he should be the number one tight end for the Vikings this year, and he's only 3,400. So I definitely think Irv Smith as a value tight end makes some sense. He probably carries a little bit more risk than a guy like than guys like Kmet and Njoku, just because he hasn't played in so long. But at 3,400, he is cheap, and he is a talented tight end, and he has shown upside when he's gotten playing time. So I did want to mention him for value as a pay down option. But let's move on to the next game, the Giants and the Titans. Not going to be one we spend much time on here. Quarterbacks in this game, probably going to pass on Ryan Tannehill and Daniel Jones. I don't know if either one of those guys make my tournament player pool. For running backs, I think both running backs are in play. Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley. Derrick Henry, we know what he offers. Not going to get a ton of usage in the passing game, which obviously sucks, but he's going to get just massive volume on the ground, probably 20-plus carries at least. He's going to get all the goal line work. We know this Titans team is going to be a team that wants to run the ball. They have a pretty bad wide receiver core, so they're going to be looking to run the ball as much as possible. I think at 8,600, obviously Derrick Henry's in play. I would still rather go to like Jonathan Taylor and Christian McCaffrey, but I think Henry's viable. He should be lower owned than some of those other running backs that we talked about. And then Saquon Barkley is probably one of my favorite plays in the mid-range. He's obviously the thumbnail of this video. I think Saquon Barkley is going to have a really good year this year if he can stay healthy. That's the one big if. Health has always been a concern with Saquon Barkley, but his competition for touches is minimal. Like the guys behind Saquon Barkley, you don't really worry about taking touches away from Barkley. I mean, Matt Breida, Brightwell, like these guys, is Brightwell even on the roster? Like he was a participant in practice, so I guess he's going to be on their roster, but it's going to be the Saquon Barkley show. Barkley should hopefully get back to the massive volume that he got kind of in his early days, his rookie year. Obviously, last year was a big disappointment for Saquon Barkley, but man, if he stays healthy, Barkley has the opportunity to be a workhorse back this year. 15 to 20 touches, minimal, I think. 12 to 15 carries at least. Going to get good usage in the passing game too, and he's only 6,100. I think this price tag looks very, very appealing on Saquon Barkley. He is a guy that I have a lot of interest in this week. He's probably going to be one of my higher-owned players, I think, and he's definitely going to make my main lineup, I would assume. He's probably going to be in my core plays too on Patreon, but yeah, I like both running backs in this game, specifically Barkley, a lot of interest in. Now, wide receivers, I mean, Robert Woods and Treylon Burks are both viable. They both have talent, but I'm not really going to be playing much Ryan Tannehill, which means I'm probably not going to be playing much Tennessee passing. I'm not really going to be targeting the Tennessee passing game much. Robert Woods is coming off an ACL injury, which is a little bit of a concern, obviously, but he should be a guy that gets good volume in this Tennessee offense. He should be the number one target of Ryan Tannehill's. And then Treylon Burks, the rookie out of Arkansas. He had a great year in college. He was really good last season when he was at Arkansas. How is he going to play with the Titans this year? How is he going to how is he going to mix in with Ryan Tannehill? Is he going to get really, really good volume playing behind Robert Woods? I guess we'll see. At only 5K, he's another guy like him. Chris Olave, Drake London, like all these rookie wide receivers have talent. They have upside. What kind of volume are they going to get is the big question, but I think Burks is playable. I'm just going to be using these guys as one-offs, though. And then the Giants receivers, I mean, maybe as one-offs you could look to like a Sterling Shepard. I mean, Kadarius Toney is someone that I've always wanted to he's a guy that I always look to roster. He was a guy that I played a lot last season when he was healthy. He wasn't healthy for much last year. He did show some upside. He had that massive game against the Cowboys where he had almost 200 receiving yards. When he's been healthy, he's been a talented receiver, but he just can't stay healthy. He's also got guys ahead of him, it seems like. He might actually be the wide receiver 4 for the Giants this year. Like, he might be playing behind Shepard, Golladay, and Slayton, which is just obviously not ideal. I'm probably going to be staying away from the Giants receivers. I mean, Sterling Shepard is okay, I guess, but I think there's just better value at the wide receiver position this week. Let's go ahead. Let's talk about these last two games, wrap up these two games real quick before we end the video. So, Chargers and Raiders. This is one that I do have some interest in. I think these last two games are definitely going to be appealing games to stack. On the Chargers side, I mean, Justin Herbert in the mid-range at quarterback or in the upper mid-range, I think is a very strong play. You can obviously stack him up with Keenan Allen, with Mike Williams. I think both those guys look like pretty solid wide receiver plays this week. And then Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr could definitely be poised for a much better year this year as a fantasy quarterback. He's got a good weapon now in Devontae Adams. Obviously, Devontae Adams, one of the best receivers in the league. So I think both quarterbacks will make my player pool from this game. And I'll definitely be stacking up this game in a lot of ways. On the running back side, not really going to be targeting the Raiders backfield. I mean, Josh Jacobs, I think is going to be probably have a down year this year. He's got competition behind him too with Zamir White. And his price tag at $6,300 doesn't look that appealing. So I'm not really interested in the Raiders running backs, but definitely Austin Eckler. I mean, Austin Eckler, he gets great volume. He gets great pass game usage. That's always just so valuable on DraftKings, getting those running backs that can catch 5, 6, 7 balls. And, obviously Austin Eckler is a guy that can do that. At $8,200, he's kind of priced where he should be. He's priced correctly, but man, Austin Eckler is a great fantasy option. Every slate he's on, he's worth targeting. And in a game like this that should be fairly high scoring, I think Austin Eckler stands out as a very solid running back play. He's right up there with guys like Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey for top overall plays at the position. And then moving on to wide receiver, I mean, all these wide receivers look appealing. Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, I think they'll all make my tournament player pool. In cash games, like in my main lineup, I don't know if I'd be playing any of these guys in my main lineup, but I definitely think in tournaments, I'm going to have some exposure to Devontae Adams. I'll definitely have some Austin Eckler, Devontae Adams mini stacks. I might even have some Herbert, Keenan Allen stacks, run back with Devontae Adams. Like, there's a lot of ways you can stack up this game. And I don't know if it's going to be a game that gets a ton of ownership. Ownership-wise, like, I think, when you're looking at ownership for Adams and Keenan Allen, I think these guys are going to come in like with probably like mid-teens if I had to guess. Right now, projected ownership for, let's see, where's Devontae Adams at? So Devontae Adams projected for 10% ownership. I think Keenan Allen's projected for, 6%. These guys aren't going to be too chalky, I don't think. Ownership usually is spread out for the most part in week 1 anyway. So definitely like those top 3 receivers. Probably not looking at anyone else, though, on the receivers, when you're looking at the receivers in this game. And then tight ends, I mean, Darren Waller, always a viable option for fantasy. Do worry a little bit about his volume coming down this year with Devontae Adams now there. I think Devontae Adams is going to take a lot of targets. He's going to demand a lot of volume. But Darren Waller should still be a really good fantasy tight end. He should still be a guy that averages probably 7-8 targets a game. And he's only 5,400 in a pretty good game environment in what should be a high-scoring game. Darren Waller, definitely one of the better plays at tight end. Throw him up there with guys like Mark Andrews, Kyle Pitts, and then maybe like a guy like George Kittle if he plays. So that's it for tight end. Let's talk about the last game, or tight end for that game. Let's go and talk about the last game of the slate, guys. Let's run through this one quickly. We've been talking for way too long, man. 50 fucking minutes. I did not expect to talk for 50 minutes. Holy shit. I'm definitely going to have to slow this down for next week. Holy crap, man. The last game of the slate, KC and Arizona. On the KC side, just looking at quarterbacks in this game, both quarterbacks are going to make my tournament player pool. Patrick Mahomes, Kyler Murray, nothing negative to say about either one. Little slight worry about Kyler Murray just with the weapons he has. No DeAndre Hopkins for this game. I mean, Hopkins is suspended right now, so a little bit worried about Murray's weapons, but this is expected to be one of the highest scoring games on the slate. 2 very high-powered offenses, 2 teams that can put up a lot of points. I do like both quarterbacks quite a bit here. Running backs for this game, I'm not too interested in the running backs. I mean, James Conner should have a pretty good workload this year. He should be the lead back for Arizona. His competition for touches behind him is not too high. I mean, they have Darrell Williams now, but I don't think Darrell Williams is going to take a ton of opportunity away from Conner. Conner, I mean, I don't think he's going to be a guy that I have a ton of exposure to, but it will at least be in my player pool. And just because I'll be stacking up this game in so many ways, I think Conner's going to make some lineups of mine. I just don't think he's going to be like a main target of mine. I don't think he's going to be one of my highest owned running backs. The 7K price point feels about right for him. And then the KC backfield, I mean, Clyde Edwards-Helaire should probably be the lead running back for KC, but they still have Jerick McKinnon they're going to give some touches to. They're going to give Jerick McKinnon pass game work as well. And you want Edwards-Helaire getting that pass game work just because with the full PPR scoring on Draftkings, you want him getting as many touches as he can. You want him catching passes too. 5,400 feels an appropriate price tag for him, but this could be like a 3-headed committee in the KC backfield. Like, you could see Edwards-Helaire, McKinnon, and Ronald Jones all getting touches. It might just be a situation that I avoid for this week 1 slate. And then the wide receivers in this game, I mean, Hollywood Brown now with the Cardinals this year. I mean, he'll probably be a weapon for Kyler Murray. If you're going to stack up Kyler Murray with the receiver, I mean, I think Hollywood Brown would be the first guy that I would look to. Hollywood Brown should get good volume while DeAndre Hopkins is still suspended. So, yeah, I think Hollywood Brown in what should be a high-scoring game makes a lot of sense to go to. I'm pretty high on Juju Smith-Schuster. I think Juju Smith-Schuster could be a guy that has a big year this year. He was always a receiver I thought was talented. He just, things just didn't work out for him in Pittsburgh. Well, now he's playing for, one of the best teams in the league. He's playing under one of the best quarterbacks in the league, if not the best quarterback in the league. And, Tyreek Hill's gone. So there's definitely going to be volume available for Juju Smith-Schuster to soak up. At only 5,200, I definitely like him as a mid-range receiver. He's right up there with Michael Pittman in terms of best kind of point per dollar plays on the slate, in my opinion. He could lead I don't want to say he'll lead the Chiefs in targets, but I think in terms of wide receivers, he'll lead the Chiefs in targets this year. I do expect Kelsey to still lead the team in targets, but he's their tight end. I think in terms of this wide receiver core, looking at Juju, MVS, and McCole Hardman, Juju could be the guy that demands the most volume of those 3. I've heard people talking about Sky Moore as a cheap option, but I think he's like their wide receiver 4. Not a guy that I'm really going to be taking any shots on, I don't think. Do want to mention Rondale Moore just because without DeAndre Hopkins, I think Rondale Moore is going to get some good opportunity. He'll probably mainly play out of the slot. He'll be their wide receiver 3, but he's really cheap. He offers big play upside. He's a talented receiver. He didn't really work out last year. He didn't have a ton of opportunity last year. He definitely was a big disappointment. I know a lot of people were high on Rondale Moore last season. Things didn't really go well, but at 4K for a cheap value receiver, I do like Rondale Moore quite a bit. He'll definitely be making my stacks of this game. I'm going to be stacking up this game in a lot of different ways in tournaments. And then the tight ends in this game, I think both tight ends look really appealing here. Travis Kelce, probably one of the better tight end plays on the slate. Close between him and Mark Andrews on who's like the top overall tight end. Probably would put Kelce ahead of Andrews. I think if you can pay up for tight end, Kelce's the number one option. Without Tyreek Hill, Kelce just should get massive volume. I know his games, whenever he played without Hill, he had massive volume in those splits whenever Hill was off the field. So, yeah, Kelce at 6,600 and what should be the highest scoring game on the slate, if not one of the highest scoring games on the slate. The price tag is not that high either. Kelce's a great tight end play. And then I do like Zach Ertz quite a bit as a value tight end. Zach Ertz should get some good volume early on in the season while DeAndre Hopkins is suspended. And we know Kyler Murray is a very good quarterback. He can get his guys the ball. This is one of those games that there's just so many viable options. I mean, you have both quarterbacks look great. You could go to the running game. I'm not as high on the running game, but the receivers, I mean, you got you got Brown, you got Juju, you got Rondale Moore for value you could go to. The tight ends both look appealing here. Like, there's just so many viable options in this game. I think stacking up this game in different ways makes a lot of sense. I'm definitely going to be running different stacks of this game in my 150 lineups this week, so I do like some Kelce. He'll probably be one of the top tight end plays for me overall, and definitely could make my main lineup. And then Zach Ertz, I do like quite a bit for a value tight end. He's up there with guys like Cole Kmet, Njoku for top values at the position. But that's it, man. That's it for the Week 1 slate. We talked way too long for this video, man. I was expecting this video to be like 25, 30 minutes, and I've talked for almost an hour. This is crazy. I'm going to have to speed this up next week. I'll definitely try my best to go a lot quicker next week, but I still hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you watched this entire video, thank you so much for supporting the content, for watching all my videos. Hit that like button, guys, before you get out of here. Hit that subscribe button, too. Again, check out PrizePicks as well. If you have not signed up for PrizePicks yet, get over there, sign up, use promo code NOAH, get your first deposit matched up to $100. As always, greatly appreciate PrizePicks sponsoring these videos. Make sure to check them out. Sign up with code NOAH if you have not yet, and be on the lookout for my PrizePicks video coming out later this week. Or later today. If not on Friday, it'll come out on Saturday. But that's all that I got for today, guys, for this Week 1 slate. If you guys want more in-depth content from me, check out the Patreon. Give core plays, favorite plays at each position. That's all provided on Patreon. Check that out if you're interested. Good luck, though. We'll see you guys in the next video.